Well, for the next example, we are going to create something that you have probably seen a whole bunch of times, and we are going to create the long shadowed look that you have seen on things like Netflix. Discovery Channel uses it, whereas the logo comes in, it's a monochromatic look, same color background as the logo, and the sun is kind of implied that it's up here and it is casting a shadow down. So here's an example of what we are going to do. Can't do that without the sound effects, sorry. So basically what's happening here is the logo comes up. You can tell the logo is coming up because of the shadow, and it's getting some highlights and lighting on the edges and the bevels. And then it slams down. There's a little bit of After Effects trickery at the end to basically create a reddish version of this that's in 2D, as well as the vignetting to sort of highlight everything. So let's jump into C4D and figure out how to do this. Okay guys, for this example, you are going to be opening up the Long Shadows Start C4D file that was in the package that you downloaded earlier. When you open it up, it's probably going to look just like a random gray screen. And however, if you scroll through the playhead, you will see that it actually is an animation that should look pretty familiar. A little bit altered for, copyright purposes, but don't tell anybody. So what this is we're looking straight down at a plane, and we've got a bunch of letters that are actually popping up through the plane. They're popping up one at a time, and then they all slam back together. So just so you can see the animation real quick, I'm going to go to animate mode up here, and we can look at our dope sheet, and these are all keyframes here, as you know. This is basically saying to start at underneath the plane. This pops up above the plane. I keyframed these all together, and then I staggered them so that the letters would come out one after another, like so. Now, the animation is already done for you, so what we're going to do instead is actually handle the lighting. And you guys have seen what is called long shadow lighting a bunch of times. You've seen the Netflix logo, you've seen it in Discovery Channel and a bunch of other things. And basically what the idea is, and you're going to see this again and people will ask for it because it's a fairly popular style. Basically what it is it's supposed to signify a very low to the ground sun, either signifying, early morning light or late afternoon light. And it's supposed to cast nice long shadows across the scene. So we are going to get started. So if you have not done it already, go ahead and move your playhead a little bit forward. And we're going to go ahead and put that about 16, 17. When you can see all the letters, you're good to go. And we are going to use an infinite light, which is under our regular lights. And you guys might be used to the regular light or the spotlight, which you've probably used before, even the area light. The area light's more realistic. The regular light, it actually shines light in all directions, kind of like a bare light bulb or a candle flame or something. Spotlight, of course, has a single point in space, and it shines light out in all directions. But the infinite light is a little bit different, and it's actually one of the older lights in the program. So when you create it, it's going to, oddly enough, get darker. So the reason why is that the infinite light, and I will try to flip this around here, it actually shines light in one direction. You can see this line right here. What that line is the direction the light is shining. So basically what's happening is the light is shining straight up the screen, which is technically off into the distance, but I will jump out of the camera just for 1 second to show you guys this. You can see which way the light is shining. Now the infinite light is interesting because it is a directional light, meaning it is shining in a direction. But if I make an object and move that object away from our light, even though the light's here shining this way, you're still seeing light on this side of the sphere. That is because it does not matter where the light is placed. What it matters is which direction that light is shining. It doesn't even matter if it's something far away and nowhere near the light. It's always going to be shining in that direction. The reason why that is because this light was created to be the sun. So when you made a 3D thing back in the past and you needed sunlight, you would use an infinite light to blanket the whole city or the whole farm or village or whatever you were modeling with sun, and it saved you from having to make a million little lights. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this sphere. You didn't have to create that. And then I'm going to go ahead and look back through my camera, and we need to adjust this light here. So it does not matter where the location is, so I'm not going to even bother to move that. I'm going to rotate the light down and over a little bit to try to get this looking the way I want it to. So as you can see, when you add a little bit of an angle to it, we're good to go. So now my light is here's my icon, but my light is kind of facing this way. It's hard to see the line, but it's there. If I go to the lines area, you can see where it is. Okay, moving on. So we don't really care about the lights here, honestly. The light is really only in the scene to make shadows. So let's do that. So I'm going to select my light, and I'm going to go ahead and select, turn something off real quick. I'm going to select shadow and shadow maps. These are the softer shadows. It's not quite as realistic as area shadows, but not quite as hard-edged as ray traced shadows. So what I'm going to do is, with those shadows on, I'm going to, well, try to figure out how to get my shadows to look like that early morning light. And I could move this around and hit render a bunch of times and hope that it works. Or wouldn't it be nice to be able to see the shadows in your render? So what I'm going to do for that is go up to Options right up here, and this is not on by default. And I'm going to turn on why is that not on? Okay. Turn on shadows, which should have been on in general. I'm not sure why it was blanked out there. But now, when I'm moving this stuff around, I can actually see what my shadows look like. And they're actually even better now in this version of the software than previous versions. So now I can aim it and get the exact shadow distance that I want from when I hit render. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to render the picture to the picture viewer. So I'll just go ahead and click on this, the middle button, and the reason why is so that we can kind of look at what we've created throughout time. So if you were the graphic designer and you looked at this, I think the first thing you'd be like is, yeah, great, we got the shadows, they're a little inky. And also everything's really dark. So troubleshooting, what we need to do is see if I can get both these things on the same thing. We realize, oh, well, there's no textures on there. So I've already created the textures. They're down at the bottom. I've got this texture called white. I'm going to take that and put it on my floor object, which is this background. And I'm going to take it and put it on this null called net flux. And now when we hit render, well, it's a little better. Just a little. I don't think it's great. Could you go in here and color correct it? Yep. Do you want to color correct that much? Probably not. Let's get it a little better. So I think the next thing we need to think about is getting our light to bounce around, because if this light comes in and bounces around a little bit, it's going to make these shadows less inky, and it's going to make this stuff brighter. And the way to get light to bounce around is, of course, global illumination. So we go to our render settings right up here, and we're going to make sure, let's make sure we're in the physical renderer for now. Make things look a little better. And we go to Effect, Global Illumination, and of course, the Radiance Cache. We want to set color refinement to 50. That is basically just going to blend out our colors and make sure that there's nothing crazy going on in the scene color-wise. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that, and we'll render it again. And you're going to see, one, it takes a little bit more time, but everything is a lot better. Did do something to the shadows over here. That's kind of a new issue that I'm running into with this new version of the software, which is always fun when I'm recording a video. So we'll have to figure out why that's happening, but we'll fix it. Okay, so as you noticed before, we had a little bit of a problem, and I decided to leave it in this video because it might happen to you guys. the first time I've done this particular example in this version of the program. That's R21, and this error has not been something that happened in the past. The solution was, on this version, I had the light pretty much here where it appeared, right where that F is. So I moved the light up a little bit. And I'm not sure why that happens. I think that just happens to be a bug. But now when I render it, it should work a little better. It doesn't take that long to render this, so in theory, if you have issues like this, just kind of nudge the light around. I just moved it, not up in the air, but just kind of up to there. So anyway, this is okay. You know, it's definitely better than this, but it still could be a little better. Now, what's happening with global illumination? It is bouncing light around. That's what those dots are. When you first hit render, all these little dots are samples. It's launching beams up into space. Those beams are hitting something and bouncing down. That thing that it's hitting is this sky object, and you are aware of the sky object. It was created right here. And in this case, the sky object is really dark gray. It's basically the same color as any other object you'd create in the scene. So let's take this material, it's called matte, it's called sky matte on your version. And now when I hit render, we're getting bright white because this material is a little bit lighter than your other scene. So now you actually have these nice bright shadows. Just a little fun trick you can do. If you want to, if they decide, whatever client it is, it's like, yeah, you know what? It's wintertime. Can you cool down the scene a little bit? Yeah, you can just go into your sky material, take color, make it bluish, I'm gonna hit render. A little bit of change on this color because it's bouncing the light around. Now I did this a little extreme because we're computer screens and whatever, but you see what it's doing. You know, oh, we want to do early morning. We want it to be like a sunrise. And here's that render. And I'm going to go back to normal. So this long shadow look was a really popular look about somewhere in the early 2010s, but a lot of people will still like this and still might want to know how to do that, especially with various colors and more advanced things. So it's a good reason to know how to do that. If you also, I wanted to do this example to show you guys how to use the light, the infinite light, to blanket an area with light, because if you ever have a scene that needs some sort of sky and some sort of sunlight, then it's a really quick way to add light to the scene.